can you be blind and dyslexic? So, I mean, the first thing to say is that there isn't actually any solid data on the number of blind people who are dyslexic, or indeed any solid data on the number of dyslexic people who are blind. So we don't have that kind of data, but let's assume, for the sake of the argument, that the brain differences, the neurological or the neurocognitive differences that characterize dyslexia can be present in blind people. Then you would assume that the number of dyslexic people and the number of blind people are going to be more or less the same. No significant differences, at least. I mean, I suppose in one respect, it's kind of unfortunate that there are no famously blind dyslexics, because at least then people wouldn't ignore the issue, or people wouldn't assume that, there are no blind dyslexics. So the first thing to say is that we know that dyslexia is a neurological condition. In the old days, maybe people thought it might have been a visual condition, but it's not. It's neurological. The next thing to say is that most visual impairment is ocular visual. It's not necessarily neurological. So most visual impairment is ocular in that respect. It's to do with the eyes, or the pathways between the eyes and the brain. In other words, there is no neurological reason that a blind person cannot be dyslexic, and there's no neurological or ocular reason, there's no visual reason that a dyslexic person can't be blind. I mean, look, there is some research showing kind of overlap, showing that there are sort of what you might call spatial tactile difficulties that blind people may have, overlapping with what you might think of as dyslexia traits, phonological decoding, that kind of thing. So we know that there are overlaps. We know this. I mean, obviously they can. I mean, we can all imagine a dyslexic person who has no visual impairment suddenly losing her or his sight, and there wouldn't be any reason to not then be dyslexic either. And we could easily imagine somebody who is blind having an implant. You can do all sorts of magic these days, can't you? And it may turn out that that person similarly experiences reading difficulties due to phonological decoding and dyslexia, that kind of thing. So, and we also know that there's been a number of studies that show that people who read Braille also experience temporal or phonological processing challenges, specifically in the Vernix and Broca's region, for instance. So we know that there are overlaps between reading Braille and having what you might call typical dyslexic manifestations in the brain. I mean, look, reading Braille is reading. Technically, you could look at a sheet of Braille and you could read it. You don't have to feel it. You can look at it and read it. So reading Braille is technically reading. Of course it is. And the only real difference is that when you read the printed word, the neurological signals travel from the eyes to that part of the brain. And when you read the Braille written word, the neurological fingers travel from the fingertips to that part of the brain. And then the processing continues. So reading Braille is reading. Neurocognitive work has proven this, by the way. It's shown that there are significant overlaps when people read when people read the printed word and when they read the Braille word. There's kind of the same thing going on in the brain. We have studies that prove that Braille readers are doing the same things in their brains that non-Braille readers are doing. We have these studies. So I think there's really something significant going on here, and it kind of demonstrates to me that a lot of the time you get a lot of people saying that, dyslexia is about visual processing, about words dancing around or something, that they connect dyslexia to the visual task or the visual act of reading. Especially with coloured overlays and stuff. This just isn't the case. And if it were, then, you wouldn't need structured teaching, explicit teaching. And we do need structured, explicit teaching with dyslexia. So I think it's really important that we understand that blind people can be dyslexic, dyslexic people can be blind. There is no necessary split, as it were, between dyslexia and visual impairment. And once we realise that, of course, the teaching strategies involved with dyslexia are not simply visual strategies. The teaching strategies involved with dyslexia are explicit, structured, cumulative, and it takes a whole world of understanding of how to support dyslexic learners. It's not just supporting their reading from a visual perspective. If you want to get in on this conversation, if you know of any blind dyslexics, or if you know of any dyslexic people who have lost their sight, or if you have experience yourself of reading Braille and finding it difficult to, as it were, decode, or if you're a teacher who's taught dyslexic people with visual impairment, I would love to hear from you, because there isn't an awful lot of research out there. There's some, but not an awful lot, and it would be great to learn from you. So please, I'd love you to get into the conversation.